Greetings, YouTube. I have produced over 7,000 videos in almost 5 years in the Marvel Contest of Champions, or more accurately, so much of the time, the Marvel Casino of Champions YouTube channel. But there have been very few, if any, videos that are more important than this forum post that we're about to read together. It's a very, very long and well thought out, articulated post. And if you want to take a look at it yourself, I will have the forum post pinned in a comment to this very comment section of this very video. But the concerned player 999 in this open letter to Kabam wants to cover so much of the state of the game that has plagued players this year. And even though this is going to be a much longer than usual video, I think it's important to not rush through it, to take our time, and to really discuss all the points that they raise. So, the post starts out, the last few months has seen this game riddled with input errors and countless other bugs that players are experiencing at various levels. Some have barely been able to play since early in the summer months, others are not experiencing them at all. Despite these issues, much of the player base has proven their loyalty and stuck with the game regardless. Very true. This loyalty, it would seem, is a completely one-way street. Shots fired. Let's discover why. The vast majority of players understand that the input and timing issues that we are experiencing has been caused by a buildup of technical debt, and the sole solution is for Kabam to create their own game engine. To do this correctly takes a lot of time and is projected to be complete sometime in early 2022. We understand that this technical debt was built by Kabam trying to make the game a better playing experience, and because of the increasingly complex coding required to run a game with so many game nodes, playable characters, events, nodes, and other necessary game components. Those issues set aside, Kabam has completely failed to uphold their end of the bargain when it comes to addressing recurring issues facing players in the battle realm that could show the players some good faith and keep things lively, entertaining, and uphold the commitment Kabam made in the original dev diary. Now on to communication. For lack of a better word, Kabam's communication with the progress of game development is pathetic. Maybe twice a year they release a dev diary outlining what they might be providing the player base, just hoping that these improvements and commitments will entice players to hang around just that few months more. Improvements is in quotes, as depending who you ask, the improvements are often a 50-50 toss-up as to the impact of the change. These dev diaries have done a good job in detailing some quality of life changes, and other concrete items have been implemented since. But the major themes and messaging is either ignored, forgotten, or completely and purposely thrown out the window nearly as soon as they are released. Some examples. The commitment to content, community, and creativity. Is there a player in existence that thinks this commitment has been upheld? The last few months have definitely proven it has not. How many fights have had to end in a light attack to fulfill an objective in the last 3 months? Forums, alliance chats, and YouTube videos are often debating whether the creative genius at Kabam has died. Keep Alliance Wars dynamic and nearly every other goal listed in Alliance War Dev Diary. Some absolute top-tier alliances and players will experience this. But for the most part, Alliance War has become a chore that too high a percentage of the player base does not truly enjoy. Constantly adding more attack defensive tactics just is not cutting it. Refer back to the commitment. How has this been acted upon? And then reduce player mental load. To quote the dev diary, asking players to draft complex battle plans to accomplish a single path in story content is a big ask, which is why we're reducing the size and complexity of all our maps. We're focusing more on designing less complex buffs, as well as layering fewer overlapping buffs on encounters. Kabam did a fantastic job maintaining the less than 70 energy and 6 lanes per map practice that was started in 7.1, but anyone who has ventured into 7.3 realizes their commitment to less complex, easier to plan routes has been completely done away with. This issue applies to Alliance Wars as well. Even when Kabam took the risk of addressing player concerns and having an Ask Me Anything section, or session I should say, the responses seemed structured to the point of being scripted, major questions were ignored, the party line answers were on repeat, and not much of worth came out of this event. Prof. Hoff had a much more informative, entertaining, and real experience with the Kabam Broccoli interview as this designer was leaving the company. Now, I appreciate that. Shout out. I will say the Kabam Broccoli interview was the best thing I've ever done on my channel. It combined all of my journalism and interview prep with my passion for the game, and I wish I could interview somebody from Kabam at least once a month. But I think the fear is that there's going to be not as much party line company answers with an interview with, say, me, because I also don't release the questions I'm going to ask beforehand so they can prep their answers. It's got to be organic. An interview has to feel natural and conversational, and you can't do that if you've memorized talking points, you know? To summarize, Kabam has a lot of work to be done in this area. The constant let them eat cake responses to true player concerns and criticisms, the patronizing and passive-aggressive responses from forum mods, and the lack of follow-through on their own commitments to better communication needs to end. Resource gateways. Marvel Contest of Champions has relied on resource gateways to bar progression since its inception. It is a good mechanic and keeps players working toward the next level when it is not handed to them. Over the last year or so, these gateways have become incredibly unbalanced and need immediate reworking to restore some semblance of control for players wanting to progress, control their champion growth, and general enjoyment of the game. ISO and Gold, these two resources have become the focal pinch point, for a variety of players, and there has been zero recognition change from Kabam to address the issue. I do think that's a fair point, you know? We still have the same ISO and Gold issues as we did, even when we were taking 4 stars to rank 5, and certainly 5 stars to rank 5, but 6 stars demand so much more gold. This is also why Cyber Weekend, as fun as it can be, if you don't get a ton more gold in ISO, you end up having all these amazing champs you can't rank up, and then Kabam capitalizes on that because the supply is so low and the demand is so high. That's normally why gold and ISO deals pop up right after, say, July 4th weekend or Cyber Weekend. The demands for these resources have increased dramatically with the introduction of rank 5 5-star champs and the ability for many players to regularly take 6 stars to rank 3. Demand has increased, yet Kabam has done literally nothing to address the supply. Again, I think that's intentional because they make more money that way, you know? Somehow mid-game gateways have respawned as a major hindrance for end-game players. How is it that advancing in the game actually inhibits your ability to get what is now a commonplace resource? This does not make any sense. It needs to be addressed immediately. Now let's talk about bugs, right? This is the most self-explanatory and most recent issue experienced by players. How is it even possible that nearly every single level of the new variant is absurdly bugged in one way or another? How is it even possible for bosses with mechanics that have been in the game for years now are functioning in the completely wrong way? How is it even possible that the final boss cannot be beaten by the specified champions the entire event is centered around? That is a great question. Again, for lack of better words, it's absolutely, utterly, and completely pathetic. Minor bugs here and there are expected, understood, and played around for the most part. To be experiencing game-breaking mechanics in nearly every single piece of content released over the last year is wearing down the players and getting to be too much. Even the pinnacle summer event, Summer of Pain, was given to the public with such obvious issues that a single playthrough by an experienced player would have caught the issue. Champions are regularly being released and take months to develop, deep dives and spotlights available in advance, yet when they are playable, it is only a day or two before some mechanic is not working as intended, or the most basic of game mechanics have not even been accounted for. Kitty Pryde and Icarus being the most recent examples that come to mind right away. The Guillotine rework won't be mentioned, probably for PTSD reasons. However, the project managers of this company are not completely embarrassed by the quality of their work and ensuring a better job is done. It should not be up to the players to find problems created by the design team. Miscellaneous issues in absolutely no part of the game should the value of a 6-star be weighted the same, let alone less, than a 5-star regular parts of the game. ISO payouts, even point values, max dupe returns, etc. Rewards in the vast majority of the game need to be returned to player progression. Cavalier event quest, 4-hour events, 3-day alliance, summoner advancement, etc. Rewards need to be equivalent to difficulty. This month's Cavalier event quest Terrax mini-boss and side quest are prime examples of this issue. Content has become incredibly stale, repetitive, overcomplicated, and creatively dead. That is an incredibly well put way to say it. Some sort of targeting mechanic needs to be implemented. The wish list crystal Kabam spoke about years ago now would have been a step up here. Even dual crystals returns are a rare return for the champions players are wanting to acquire and do not do anything for acquiring a relevant 6-star champion. To conclude this open letter, Kabam needs to realize how quickly its player base is dwindling and struggling to find reasons to continue playing. Players that have been here since the beginning with 5+ years of investment are wondering why they should bother to continue on this road. It has been years and years of Kabam committing to be better than abjectly doing nothing to listen to the major concerns. I will say, in fairness, I don't think they're doing nothing. I think they're overwhelmed by the fact that a lot of these problems they wish would go away, but so much of what they've done has not worked. It's like when your house is on fire and you want to put it out and you've tried everything and the flames are still increasing and you're still trying to convince people to live there, but the house is still on fire. And it's not that you haven't tried fire hydrants and water hoses, etc., but it's that obviously maybe the house just needs to come down and the whole thing needs to be rebuilt. How about that for an analogy? It's been years and years of committing to be better than objectively doing nothing to listen to major concerns, doubling down on misguided decrees about the game, and doing the most minimal patchwork to fix things each month. The most disheartening part of all this is that these issues listed barely cover player concerns and the fixes are beyond blatantly obvious. Listen to your players, Kabam. We want you to do well. Many of us want to give our money. All of us want to keep playing this game, just not the way it is and not down the road you're taking it. Sincerely, an extremely concerned 5-year-plus player. Wow, what a post. Those regular viewers to my channel know I like to keep videos ideally at or under 5 minutes, but certainly below 10. But this is one of those exceptions that I just didn't want to rush through because it was so well written that I wanted to cover all points. And if you look at the comments by clicking on this link, you'll see so many players agree with this post. I want to point out something too that wasn't put in. I touched on this yesterday. The best thing that happened to the game is cheap Cavalier Nexus crystals. $5 for 2. So many players have opened 6-star Stark Spidey, 6-star Nick Fury. Heck, even if you got someone like me who got a 6-star Cyclops for $5, really for $2.50 if you consider you get 2 crystals for $5. That's amazing. Now, it does make things like the early access bundles look like the biggest ripoff ever, and they weren't a good deal even before this. But at the same time, that's how the game evolves. When you give people for $5 to $10, which I feel like is the right price point for so many people's wallets, maximum value. Kabam still makes a ton of money, but they're giving players more choice and less chance. That's really been the motto of my channel, especially since Nexus crystals were introduced. I rarely give anything a high grade that doesn't have a Nexus component to it, because obviously if you're opening crystals that aren't Nexus crystals, you have no choice. It's all chance. It's all RNG based. I want to say thank you again to Concerned Player 999. I am honored you mentioned my interview. Given how hard I worked on it, it's always nice to be recognized. But the larger point is that transparency occurred in the interview. And more importantly, he's just a really good guy. Like, I say this with no exaggeration. Like, I have a man crush on Kabam Broccoli because he's incredible at his job. So many of the champions that he made are my favorite champions to use. And he's just a down-to-earth guy that even after years of working at the company, and yes, he left for a different game, but he still would love to come back and work for Kabam at some point if that opportunity presents itself because he believes that much in what he did and he wasn't burnt out. That's pretty rare for anyone doing that level of intense work. So Kabam has some really good people in it, and I learned more about the company culture, and I think a lot of what they do is great, but so many of the issues listed in this post really are talking about the blind spots that go on with the company. And we're almost to 2022. And so it's always important to know how you can improve, not just as a player base, but also as a game company that supplies that player base with hopefully entertainment and information. Have a great rest of your weekend, YouTube, and thanks again to this awesome summoner for writing such an eloquent post.